There is definitely something going on within the locker room, the front office. Something is off, man. This is the third situation in one game we have had involving Caitlin Clark and the coaching staff and pretty much another player. And it looked like Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White definitely had a situation where they was in a heated exchange right before halftime.
This wasn't just another game. This was a seismic shift in the WNBA, a performance that shut down every critic, silenced every doubter, and made one thing crystal clear. Caitlin Clark has arrived. On a night that was supposed to be about rivalry, Clark versus Paige Bueckers, two of the most high prospects in women's basketball history, it quickly turned into something much bigger. The game became a stage for redemption, a statement of dominance, and a record-breaking clinic unlike anything the WNBA has seen this season. Clark didn't just lead her team to victory, she rewrote the narrative around her entire rookie campaign.
Feel like this was one of their best games as far as playing fever basketball, which is a fast-paced style of basketball. They played fever basketball for, I would say, about 75 to 80% of the game. And we have obviously seen this style of basketball, the style of basketball that we all know and love from the Indiana Fever, but we have only really seen it in short spurts. There have been so many games and so many times throughout this season where it feels like the Fever system is a slow down basketball type of system. Their offense wasn't running smoothly, but in this game, they were playing quick. They were moving the ball around. They had so many points off of the fast break.
She dismantled the Dallas Wings with poise, speed, and vision, guiding the Indiana Fever to a franchise record night while making history again. But how did we get here? What really happened behind the scenes before this game? And what does this blowout tell us about the future of the Fever and the league itself? Stick around, because what unfolded on that court wasn't just about basketball. It was about legacy, leadership, and the moment Caitlin Clark officially became the face of the WNBA. If you're ready to see how Clark shattered expectations and etched her name in the record books for a second time, drop a comment below. Let's dive in.
Hey, Caitlin. You've known Paige since middle school, AAU. You guys were on the U19 World Cup team together. Is there anything that maybe stood out then about her, whether it be on or off the court, that maybe still reigns true today?
I mean, I feel like she's played in the same manner that she, has since she was, whether we were on the U16 team together, U19 team together, whether it was me watching her in AAU. Like, she's always just been smooth. She takes what the game gives her. Her midi has always been as nice as it's been this year. She's just like, she just plays way older than she is. Like, she's confident, she's smooth, she just does everything at a high level, can score from all three levels. And that's how she's always played. And that's obviously translated really well.
Before the bright lights of the WNBA and the national broadcast, Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers were just two teenage girls lighting up high school gyms and lighting up each other's headlines. Their names were already legendary by the time most players were just learning to run a pick and roll. Clark, with her unrelenting motor, deep-range missiles, and fiery personality, was a walking highlight reel. Bueckers, calm and surgical, played like she had been coached by the basketball gods themselves. Her mid-range game was butter, her court vision flawless, and her demeanor ice cold. From the very beginning, they weren't just athletes, they were opposite. Clark was the storm, intense, high volume, and fearless. Bueckers was the surgeon, precise, efficient, and deadly in her own quiet way. And fans knew even then that they weren't just watching two great players. They were witnessing the birth of a rivalry that could shape the future of women's basketball. They faced off in elite AAU tournament. They wore the same Team USA jersey at Youth World Cup. But even when they were on the same team, the comparisons never stopped. Coaches, scouts, and fans couldn't help but ask, who's better? Who's the future? Who would carry the torch? Every interaction, every head-to-head moment became fuel for debate. And while their friendship off the court was real, their paths were always destined to collide, again and again, on bigger and bigger stages. This wasn't just two talented players competing. This was destiny in motion. And the tension between their styles, personalities, and fan bases only made their story that much more explosive.
A lot of people are saying, oh, everything is she was Caitlin before Caitlin, she's better than Caitlin, all this stuff. That kind of stopped in the media. Caitlin Clark put up better numbers in the WNBA than Paige did in college.
When it came time to choose their college path, Clark and Bueckers didn't just pick schools, they chose legacy. Bueckers took the traditional route, signing with the powerhouse, UConn, a program built on banners, Hall of Fame coaching, and a dynasty of excellence under Gino Auriemma. It was the safe bet, the obvious destination for a player as polished as Paige. She was stepping into greatness and expected to continue it. Clark, she went rogue. Iowa wasn't wasn't a basketball blue blood. It didn't have a wall of trophies or a legendary coach with a dozen Final Fours under his belt. What it had was an opportunity, a chance for Clark to build something on her own terms, to become the architect of her own spotlight. It was risky, it was bold, and it turned out to be the perfect fit. Their first real college clash came on the national stage, where rivalries get written in ink, not pencil. And Clark, she showed up with a flamethrower. She torched UConn's defense in March Madness with a 41-point masterpiece that sent the Huskies home early. Bueckers had no answer. Every time UConn tried to adjust, Clark pulled deeper, passed sharper, or ran faster. Iowa walked away with the win, and Clark walked away with the crown. By the end of their college careers, Clark led the series 2-1. But more than that, she dominated the headline. Her name was synonymous with chaos, confidence, and clutch. Bueckers was great, no question, but Clark had become something bigger, a movement. The media turned their rivalry into mythology. ESPN highlight, Twitter debate, fans drawing lines in the sand. You were either Team Clark or Team Bueckers, and there was no in between. And then came the criticism. Gino Auriemma himself questioned Clark's wild shot selection, hinting that her flashy style might not survive in the pros. Others echoed his doubt, saying Bueckers' fundamentals and control would age better at the WNBA level. But Clark didn't flinch. Every big game, every hostile crowd, every spotlight moment, she showed up. She didn't just play for wins. She played like she had something to prove. The myth was built, the rivalry was real, and the world was watching, waiting for the next chapter.
And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening. And they all jumped over her, but they didn't read the whole thing that she said. But nobody's printing. You know, Diana Taurasi was right. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie. And if you're a WNBA player, if you're any kind of player, you're going to say, I'm going to make a statement.
When Caitlin Clark declared for the WNBA, the hype was off the chart. Fans expected fireworks, critics expected flameout. But what nobody expected was just how rocky the transition would be. From the jump, Clark was under a microscope. Every shot she took, every pass she made, every reaction on the bench, scrutinized in real time. She wasn't just a rookie, she was the most watched player in the league. And the weight of that spotlight, it hit fast. The Indiana Fever were supposed to be her launch pad, but instead, they became her test. The team was struggling to find any consistency. They'd win a game convincingly, only to get blown out days later. Fans were frustrated, analysts were concerned, and Clark, she was caught in the middle of a system that didn't quite fit. The heart of the issue wasn't just on the scoreboard, it was philosophical. Clark thrived in chaos. She was built for transition, fast breaks, and full court magic. But head coach Stephanie White, she preferred structure, slow, deliberate, half-court sets that stifled the very instincts that made Clark special. The clash was subtle at first, small moments of hesitation, missed opportunities on fast break, but it didn't stay hidden for long. Tensions began to show on the sideline. There were visible disagreements between Clark and White, heated exchanges caught on camera, body language that said more than any interview ever could. Meanwhile, Clark's performance started dipping. Her shooting percentages dropped, her turnovers climbed. Social media exploded with takes, some calling her a bust, others defending her as a victim of poor coaching. Even WNBA legends weighed in, warning that the physicality of the league might be too much for her. Still, Clark didn't back down. She kept launching shots, kept pushing the tempo, even when it wasn't part of the game plan. And behind the scenes, she was working, watching film, grinding through slumps, staying locked in. I know how hard I've worked, she said. This isn't something that's going to last, but the pressure was building. Every game felt like a referendum. Every loss was a headline. The Fever's slow system wasn't just limiting Clark, it was limiting the entire team. And as frustrations mounted, one thing became clear. If something didn't change soon, the season and the Caitlin Clark experiment was going to spiral fast.
Talking to our player development coach yesterday, and he was like, just sent me a few things of like even Steph going through a slump. I think he was like 27 for his last 70 or something like that. Like the best in the world go through it, and I think that's like where you can find your confidence. And I think the thing I always fall back on is like, I know how hard I've worked, so you know this isn't something that's gonna last, and the best players in the world go through this. So I feel like I'm getting good shots, and I think that's why it's frustrating, because those are the shots that I make.
Behind the scenes, the Indiana Fever weren't just battling opponents, they were battling themselves. What started as subtle friction between Caitlin Clark and head coach Stephanie White was now bubbling to the surface in full view of fans, cameras, and the media. The team was spiraling, not just from losses, but from something deeper, a disconnect, a philosophical tug of war between how Clark believed the game should be played and how the coach insisted it be run. The breaking point came during a nationally televised game against the Atlanta Dream. Late in the first half, Clark and White were seen in a fiery sideline exchange. Nothing subtle about it. Words were exchanged, faces tightened, and for the first time, the tension couldn't be ignored. Commentators tried to play it off. The Fever front office stayed quiet. But fans, they saw everything, and they started asking the same question. Was Indiana failing its biggest star? This wasn't just about basketball strategy. strategy anymore. It was about identity. Clark wanted freedom to create, to push the pace, to play the instinctive electric brand of basketball that made her a household name. White, meanwhile, held tightly to her structured half-court set, slowing the game down and keeping Clark on a leash. And it wasn't just coach versus player. Locker room dynamics were shifting too. Lineup inconsistencies added fuel to the fire. Clark was still regaining form after dealing with nagging injury. Other players, like Dantas returning from overseas duty, disrupted the team rhythm. The chemistry never had time to settle. Roles weren't defined. Rotations felt off. Players looked confused, hesitant, lost in translation between two conflicting visions of how the Fever should operate. Even when the Fever managed to scrape out a win, like the victory over Atlanta that snapped their losing streak, it didn't feel like a turning point. The tension didn't vanish. It just went underground. Everyone could sense it. Clark's brilliance was being bottled up. The team was being held back by the very structure meant to hold it together. And through it all, Clark kept showing up, shooting through slump, taking the criticism, owning her struggles. She drew inspiration from Steph Curry, another shooter who'd been doubted early, another star who had weathered cold streaks and come out stronger. "I'm never going to stop shooting," she said, even when the ball wasn't falling. But there was a bigger question looming over Indiana's season. How long could they keep suppressing the very thing that made Caitlin Clark great? Because if the Fever didn't let her be herself, if they kept forcing her into a system she didn't believe in, they weren't just wasting Clark's talent. They were wasting the opportunity to build something historic.
You know, it can be frustrating when your shot isn't going in the way that you want it to, but then like I look at the box and it's like I'm really 4 shots away from having a really good game, a really good shooting game. So that's where you find your confidence, and I know those are shots that I can make, and I'm never going to stop shooting. So, I mean, until I break out of it, I'm just going to keep launching, and that's all I know, and I'm still confident in everything that I can do.
After years of hype, college battles, and nonstop comparisons, the moment had finally arrived. Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers, face-to-face in their first professional showdown. And the timing couldn't have been more dramatic. Clark had been under siege all season, navigating coaching tension, offensive misfires, and the weight of being the most talked-about rookie in the WNBA. Bueckers, on the other hand, entered with less noise but plenty of confidence, backed by supporters who claimed her fundamentals would outlast Clark's flash. This wasn't just a basketball game. It was a referendum on everything the rivalry had become. ABC picked it up for national broadcast. The league knew what this meant. Ratings would spike, social feeds would explode. The fans wanted blood or brilliant, maybe both. Inside the Fever locker room, the stakes were crystal clear. Clark was still reeling from tough losses in a system that kept shackling her creativity. The media had questioned if she could lead a pro team. Opponents had taken cheap shots, and critics kept pointing to her inefficiency. This was her shot to flip the script, to take all the doubt and turn it into dominance. And Bueckers, she wasn't just any opponent. She was the opponent, the measuring stick, the one player whose very name always followed Clark's in every debate. As the players took the court, the atmosphere was electric. Fans packed the arena, chanting, filming, leaning in. The tension was thick enough to cut. The opening minute, tight, measured. Both teams feeling each other out. Clark moved the ball well, looking to get others involved. Bueckers stayed poised, efficient, deliberate. It was like watching two chess players open a match, calculated, methodical, waiting for the moment to strike. But no one knew what was coming next, because this game wasn't going to end in a battle. It was going to end in an explosion, and Caitlin Clark was the fuse.
Rue the other night had a season high 18 points. Here's Boston turning the corner, dishing to Hull, extra feed Clark, a deep three, you bet! And he actually brought up stats from a shooting slump Steph Curry went through. She said that made her feel a lot better. That pass will as well, right on the money to Mitchell.
Cunningham attacked the closeout.
Clark, the rejection of Quinterly. Clark, the flick ahead. Oh, beautifully done. Touchdown, Fever.
The first quarter may have looked like a back-and-forth battle between two evenly matched teams, but then something shifted, something that changed the entire tone of the night. Stephanie White finally let go of the leash. In a moment that would reshape the Indiana Fever's season, the coach made the bold decision to hand Caitlin Clark the keys to the offense. No more rigid half-court play call, no more slow-down possession. It was time to let Clark be Clark, and that decision detonated the second quarter. It started quietly, a full-court pass here, a deep three there, but suddenly it snowballed. Clark began pushing the pace like a quarterback in a 2-minute drill, dropping pinpoint dimes in transition and bending the defense in every direction. The Fever ran the floor with purpose. Spacing improved, the energy was contagious. And then, boom, 36 points in a single quarter, a blistering 33-9 run. The Dallas Wings didn't just stumble, they disintegrated. Clark's vision lit up the court like electricity. Her signature full-court touchdown passes connected flawlessly. One after another, teammate began cashing in. It was beautiful, unselfish, unselfish, unstoppable basketball, the kind of high-octane style Clark had been begging to play all season. Kelsey Mitchell started to cook. Natasha Howard sprinted the floor like she was 10 years younger. Aaliyah Boston became a force in the paint, feeding off Clark's perfect timing. Even Sophie Cunningham came off the bench and added fire to the frenzy, slashing through defenders and making plays in transition. The Fever weren't just playing well, they were putting on a clinic. The second quarter's 36-point eruption tied for the third highest scoring quarter in franchise history. But it wasn't just about the point, it was how they got them. The ball movement was crisp, purposeful. Every possession had rhythm. Every shot was created through chemistry, not chaos. For the first time all season, Indiana looked like a team with an identity, and that identity was fast, fearless, and fueled by Caitlin Clark. The Wings had no answer. Their defense collapsed under the pressure. The physicality they banked on, useless. The scouting report, outdated. They were chasing ghosts on defense, and by the time they caught their breath, the scoreboard was already screaming the truth. Clark had changed everything.
I feel like this stretch, this is a big game for us. I think we've struggled in the fact that we're able to play one good game, and then we play a bad game, then we play a good game, then we play a bad game. So I think for us is like, we got to find a way to be able to stack really good games together. And then we go on the road and, we're on a back-to-back, which is just a challenge in itself. No matter who you're playing, we play Connecticut, then we play New York. So I think Steph's message was, yes, All-Stars coming up, that break's coming up, but our focus is on these 3 games that we have left. So in that sense, I do think it's critical that our focus just remains on the game in front of us. And I feel like that's what everybody in the locker room is doing.
With Clark running the show at full throttle, something incredible started to happen. Every single player around her leveled up. This wasn't just one star taking over a game. This was a team transformation in real time. Clark didn't need to drop 40 to dominate. She elevated everyone else. And for the first time all season, the Indiana Fever played like complete unit, firing on all cylinders. Kelsey Mitchell, already known for her scoring ability, exploded. She fed off Clark's tempo, cutting harder, spotting up faster, and drilling shots from all over the court. She finished with 20 points on a sizzling 8 for 12 shooting, extending her double-digit scoring streak to 21 straight games. She looked confident, energized, dangerous, and the scary part, she didn't even have to force it. Clark made it easy. Natasha Howard looked like she had hit another gear. Her off-ball movement, rim running, and finishing were flawless. She dropped 18 points on 8 of 9 shooting, near perfection. Howard became a constant threat in transition, crashing the paint with purpose and feeding off Clark full-court vision like a sprinter chasing the perfect path. And then there was Aaliyah Boston, the anchor down low. Boston dominated the interior, scoring efficiently and defending the paint with muscle. Every time Clark drew a defender or collapsed the lane, Boston was there, catching, finishing, and punishing Dallas for leaving her open. The chemistry between her and Clark felt effortless, like they'd been running this offense together for years. But the surprise spark came off the bench. Sophie Cunningham. With Clark creating chaos, Cunningham had room to slice through defenders and do damage. She added 13 points, including a milestone driving layup that pushed her past 1,500 career points. Her hustle, grit, and ability to space the floor added another layer to Indiana's offense. The result, a Fever team that finally felt complete. It wasn't just about scoring. It was about energy, flow, trust. For once, everyone looked like they belonged because Clark had unlocked the version of the Fever that had only existed in theory until now. This was the identity Indiana had been searching for. Fast-paced, unselfish, sharp, and relentless. And it was all because someone finally said, let Caitlin be Caitlin.
Here's Clark being hawked by Isaiah James. Clark sidestepping 3 is good. Clark backing down Quinterly. 6 to shoot, baiting away and dropping it in. Beautiful. Here's Clark off the screen, through the lane, feeds Howard. Another assist for Clark. That's 13. As Howard is up to 18 points.
As the scoreboard tilted more and more in Indiana's favor, most fans thought the headline would be the blowout, the score, the rivalry. But underneath all the flashy plays and fast break brilliance, Caitlin Clark was quietly scripting something far bigger, history. She wasn't lighting it up with a 40-point outburst. This was something more surgical, more complete. Clark was controlling every inch of the court, directing traffic, orchestrating movement, setting the tempo like a conductor with a basketball in her hand. By the third quarter, the numbers started catching everyone's attention. She had already racked up double-digit assists, dished out pass after pass that looked impossible until they landed perfectly in stride. Her scoring was efficient, 14 points that came in the flow of the game. Not forced or flashy, just timely and precise. But then came the defensive side of the story, the part most critics never expected from her. Steal after steal, Clark began reading Dallas like an open book. She wasn't gambling or chasing plays. She was anticipating them, seeing the pass before it happened, sliding into position, picking pocket, disrupting flow. Her 5th steal sealed it, a stat line of 14 points, 13 assists, and 5 steals. steal. And with that, she entered WNBA history for the second time. Caitlin Clark became the only player in the league's history to record that exact stat line twice. Not Diana Taurasi, not Sue Bird, not Sabrina Ionescu, just Clark. It wasn't just an anomaly. It was a message. She wasn't just a shooter. She wasn't just a flashy passer. She was evolving into something much rarer, an all-around game changer, someone who could score, facilitate, defend, and lead. And she was doing it under pressure in the national spotlight against a rival who had once shared the throne. And if that wasn't enough, her defensive impact went beyond the steal. She swatted a shot late in the third quarter, recovered the ball, and fired a full-court assist to Sophie Cunningham in transition, all in one seamless motion. The crowd erupted. The bench lost it. The Fever knew right then they weren't just witnessing a great game. They were witnessing a superstar becoming inevitable.
Cunningham attacked the closeout.
Clark, the rejection of Quinterly. Clark, the flick ahead. Oh, beautifully done. Huck down Fever.
Sophie Cunningham runs the route and puts her hand up in the air, gives Caitlin Clark the target, barely over the fingertips of Hines Allen. Beautiful, beautiful pass, catch, in stride, finish. Beautiful basketball.
By the time the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard read 102-83. But that number barely scratched the surface of what just happened. This wasn't just a win. It was a turning point, maybe even a warning shot to the rest of the league. Caitlin Clark didn't just answer the critics. She drowned them out. All season, the chatter had been relentless. She's too flashy. She can't handle the physicality. She's not built for the W. And for a while, with the Fever stumbling and the offense sputtering, those doubts had legs. But this game burned them to the ground. Clark didn't just silence the noise. She made the league listen. Every assist, every steal, every full-court bullet pass screamed the same message: I belong here, and not just to exist, but to lead. Her style wasn't just working, it was thriving. For the first time, fans saw what Indiana Fever basketball could look like when Clark was free to play her game. And it wasn't just entertaining, it was dominant. A franchise record 64 points in the first half, a system finally moving at Clark's speed, teammates feeding off her energy, chemistry clicking into play. This wasn't about ego, it wasn't about padding stat, it was about a vision finally being realized. Clark didn't take over the game because she had to. She took over because she could. And when given the freedom to lead, she didn't implode. She exploded. The Wings had no answer. Bueckers, once her equal in the rivalry, faded into the background. Eric Ogunbowale, Dallas's scoring machine, was held to 0 field goals. Their strategy to rough up Clark to force her off rhythm completely backfired. She took every bump, every grab, every screen switch, and used it against them, finding the open player, breaking trap, controlling the flow. This was Caitlin Clark at full throttle, and the results were undeniable. There would be no more questions about whether her game could translate. No more whispers about whether she was the right fit. This performance proved it beyond doubt. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star in the making. She's already here.
And he actually brought up stats from a shooting slump Steph Curry went through. She said that made her feel a lot better. That pass will as well. Right on the money to Mitchell. A tenacious start from Caitlin Clark. Here's Ogunbowale off on a three. Long rebound. Mitchell. You're not going to catch her. Kelsey Mitchell in for two. They elevate each other because of how hard they compete. Nice look, Aaliyah Boston with a gorgeous dime to Kelsey Mitchell.
What happened on that court against the Dallas Wings was more than a rivalry win, more than a record-setting night. It was a glimpse into the future and a statement about what's coming next. For weeks, the Indiana Fever felt like a puzzle missing its final piece. They had the talent, they had the potential, but something always felt off, disjointed, flat. Caitlin Clark was in the building, but her brilliance was muted by a system that didn't quite know what to do with her. That's over now. This game wasn't just about unleashing Clark's style. It was about the Fever finally discovering their identity. Fast-paced, aggressive, unselfish, explosive. A style that doesn't just suit Clark, it transforms the entire team. It brings out the best in Mitchell. It unlocks Howard and Boston. It energizes the bench. It wins games. For the first time all season, the Fever weren't playing hesitant basketball. They were playing their brand of basketball, Fever basketball. The kind fans have been waiting for. The kind the WNBA can't ignore. And maybe the biggest revelation? Stephanie White finally trusted her star. She let go of the structure. She handed the reins to the rookie, and Clark rewarded her with one of the most complete performances in WNBA history. The franchise record 64 points in one half. The historic 14-13-5 stat line. The pure, undeniable dominance, not just for one quarter, not just for one night, but as a blueprint for the future. With road games ahead against Connecticut and New York, the challenges aren't over. The pressure's only going to build. But now, the Fever aren't walking into those arenas with doubt. They're walking in with swagger, with belief, with proof. The rivalry between Clark and Bueckers is just getting started at the professional level. But if this first chapter is any indication, Clark isn't just here to compete. She's here to lead. So here's the bottom line. The Caitlin Clark era has officially begun. And if the Indiana Fever stick with her vision, trust her pace, and let her run free, they're not just building a contender. They're building something legendary. If you believe Clark just changed the game, again, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in this rising WNBA rivalry.